She's got a Chevy, double parked with the doors swung wide. FM preacher, the radio's high. Hair in a tantrum, eyes like the streets of fire. To her boyfriend behind the wheel. She said, stay in the car and I'll grab what you want. She said, stay in the car. I wanna know her. I want us to get along. Be the ice cream left out in her tongue. Plug into the speaker and put on her favorite song from the AC and sing along. She said, stay in the car and I'll grab what you want. She said, stay in the car. She been out of the market. Plastic bags digging into her wrist. Blood stuck in her fingertips. Fuming impatient. Pop the trunk, slam the door, peel off. Cloud of smoke left where she just walked. She said, stay in the car and I'll grab what you want. She said, stay in the car and I'll grab what you want. She said, stay in the car and I'll grab what you want. She said, stay in the car.
Hi, I'm Maddie, sitting down for another one of the Currents virtual sessions. Today, I am joined by the duo Bachelor, which is comprised of Melina Duterte of JSOM and Ellen Kempner of Palehound. Thanks so much for being here, you guys.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, we just heard their track Stay in the Car, and now we're gonna jump back into the music. Here is Anything at All.
Stuck to her door like a fly in a web. The foot on my bed shaking with her step. She's forever approaching. I'm forever in dread. Wrap me in silk and bite off my head. I shouldn't say anything at all, anything at all. I shouldn't say anything at all, anything at all. I shouldn't say anything at all, anything at all. I shouldn't say anything at all, anything at all.
That was just Anything at All from Bachelor, the duo of Ecklund and Melina, who are sitting down today for a virtual session. I'm Maddie, and I'm so glad to be here with them today. How are you guys doing? How's your day starting out?
It's been a fun day so far. We did a Reddit AMA earlier, and we had a lot of fun with that.
Answered a lot of questions.
Yeah, lots of questions. Different kinds of questions, too. So, yeah.
Were there any questions that came up in that AMA that you surprised you in a good way, like were something that you really enjoyed?
There was one person who, like, one of the last comments that was like, I have my first crush on a girl ever. How do I talk to her? And that was amazing. I think that took the cake for number one question.
That's so cute.
Reddits are always so cute because everyone's like so sweet and they're just like, do you have any advice for like songwriting? How do I get into like being a musician? It's just very wholesome.
Surprisingly wholesome for like Reddit. You'd think it would get dark, but it doesn't.
That's good. That's good news. It's like that little like sweetheart microcosm. That's probably partially due to the crowd that you attract, but yeah. Cool. Well, yeah, I wanted to talk about how this project kind of came into existence. I know you guys are hanging out in the same physical space now, but you're typically on different coasts. How'd Bachelor get started?
Well, we got started in Melina's old home. This is Melina's home studio that we're in right now. But the first thing we ever did was in her old home studio. I live in New York, but I was in LA for a week, and we had like played some shows together and been friends like over the internet for a minute. But we made plans to hang out and just like make music together and actually get to know each other. And so we spent a day in her bedroom, like just playing drums and recording songs, and just kind of like immediately clicked and realized that this was something we wanted to do.
Yeah. So Doomin Sun just came out a few days ago. What was the recording process for that album like? When did you write those songs?
It was really cool. It was fun. Before lockdown happened during last year. So like we were in Topanga, California, in January, and we were there for 2 weeks at an Airbnb, and we just like brought my entire studio over there and just like set everything up and just made all these songs on the spot except for one song, and yeah, we had a lot of fun.
Was creating all of that music within that sort of short 2-week time span something that was different for you guys making albums, or is that kind of what you've done before?
It was different, for sure, because we hadn't written anything going into the studio either. That was the most different part. I feel like 2 weeks is around what it usually takes for at least like Palehound to record a record, but there's like a lot of preparation that goes into that beforehand, and we did not have that this time around, so it was like very different.
Was that like a deliberate choice? Like you didn't want to come in with a lot of songs prepared, or is it just kind of circumstantially how that worked out?
I think that's my style, and I'm always like I'm a little too chill about that, I think. I'm just like, it's fine. We'll get it done in 2 weeks. And Ellen's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, that was so inspiring because, like, I've never worked like that before, but Melina, like, writes as she records, which is really cool. And, like, I learned a lot from that. But... yeah, I mean, I think I was pretty go with the flow, like more go with the flow than I would have expected myself to be in that scenario. And I think I just always trusted that we would get something done because Melina seemed like pretty confident about it.
It's really challenging, but I think it's like a cool muscle to flex on the spot. It's like a form of improv for like music. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I have really been into the lyrical content of this album because I like that songs like Back of My Hand talk about, like pop fandom or like Stay in the Car is just like about just like another little moment in time. Where do these sort of songs come from in those more specific and unique lyrical moments?
Those lyrics are all those are like small ideas that I had going into the studio for those two songs in particular. I had been like inspired to write a song about stand-up and like the like oppression of celebrity and beauty culture for a while, but I hadn't really found a good like framework to work it in with. That because I like to kind of like tell stories and kind of shroud things in like little details when I write. And so that's kind of how that one worked. And then Stay in the Car, kind of was just like a little poem in my notes app. That was like a couple lines, and then we elaborated on it.
How did both of you, things that I love about your other projects is that you have such personal songwriting, and this album still feels very personal as a duo. How did you sort of balance both of your individual selves and musicianship to create a pair here?
Yeah, I think that's a good word, balance. I think you really have to think about that. You have to like sit down and really think about how you're going to work with someone for the first time. And a lot of it is how you communicate with each other, not as like working partners, but as friends too. I think that goes hand in hand with the music that you make, because you're trying to be emotional with each other. You're kind of like letting go of those walls, because it can be like really embarrassing. Especially with someone you don't know that well. But it's really easy with Ellen because we have like so many strengths in different ways, and I love to just like take a really just like a back seat when it comes to like lyrics, because I hate writing lyrics, but I love like paying attention to like production and stuff like that. And like Ellen is just so good at writing, and she's also a producer too, which is amazing. So it's like, you know, those things like coexist in a really cool way when we collabed.
Yeah, I think we both like learned a lot from each other, which was really like, I kind of knew that was going to happen, but like, wow, I was like really inspired by watching her produce. And like, I know she's brought up like being inspired by the way that I write lyrics. And I think that those were two things that we're each respectfully like embarrassed about with our own projects. So I think that was kind of like cool to see someone who's like has that at the top of their list of like what they feel confident doing. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you have very like complementary skill sets, which makes it a perfect duo, which has been really fun for all of us to hear. Is there anything that coming into this recording process surprised you about the other person's music writing work style that you really enjoyed?
I don't know if anything was, because I like knew how Melina did things, but I think I was just still surprised at how quickly she could do it, and how you just like would get like an immediate perfect idea for like a bass line. Like first, like there was very little trial and error of different parts. I feel like there was a lot of just like, oh, I know what I want to happen, and then making it happen. So I think like the whole process was a lot faster than I thought it was going to be. I kind of like saw us doing a lot of post-production after the 2 weeks of recording, and we really didn't.
Cool.
Yeah. I feel the same way about you too. I feel like I want you to get more credit for like the way that you produce and like play instruments, because Ellen did play drums for a lot of these, and also piano and some keyboard stuff. That I know you've done before, but it's really cool to see you do that, because I feel like a lot of people box you into this like guitar rock. No, you're like this guitar god person, but you're not just that like beautiful songwriter, and you're also an amazing producer. But you also have ideas in your own way too. Like you have like references, and then you'll be like, let's make it like funky like right away, and you'll just like play. You'll play and do it like what you do. Like you don't like I feel like I collab with a lot of people where they just want to like talk about it, but with you it'd be like you pick an instrument up and you just do it. And that's like my favorite part about recording, is when it's like less talking and more just like, you know, we can play the music now and then we'll watch TV later. For sure. And then we would like talk at night too. Like at night after or during TV, we would talk about just like shit in our lives that was going on. And I think that really bonded us in terms of like just like completely meshing into one, like really feeling each other's wavelengths, like really feeling like the mood always of like being very connected of like, oh, I can tell you're not feeling this, you don't even have to say it, or like, oh, let's take a break, like I'm feeling tired and I can feel that you're feeling tired, or like we just really like meshed.
Yeah, the way that you two speak about each other is exactly how I kind of like pictured this friendship existing as a listener of this album, because you guys just like have such like a clear mutual admiration. It's very, very sweet to get to witness.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about duos, like as I've kind of immersed myself in the world of Doomin Sun. Do you guys have any particular musical duos or iconic duets that speak to you?
Wow.
Sonny and Cher.
That's a good what?
There you
Sonny
go.
and
Sonny and
Cher.
Cher. Damn, I gotta think about that. I
You
feel
like the Breeders are basically
the Breeders. Mm-hmm. The Deals. Mm-hmm. Oh man, there's one that's
Tegan and Sarah.
Tegan and Sarah.
For obvious reasons.
Yeah.
They're twins. Yeah, who's an
Run the
iconic
Jewels.
duo? Oh,
Run the Jewels
Yeah.
is a really iconic duo. They're
Yeah.
cool.
Ben Affleck and J-Lo,
Iconic.
because they're back together now.
They really are.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
Yeah,
I
hoping
know I'm
that
gonna think of a lot more after this interview. I'm gonna
Yeah.
like remember all my answers like as soon as we hang up.
Yeah, we'll like superimpose it over the top of the screen. Like, here's some more iconic duos Ellen's thinking about. It's more than Ben Affleck and J-Lo.
I promise.
That's awesome. I know you guys haven't really had the chance to play live shows, of course, with the album just coming out and the project just being announced a little bit earlier this year. But you have Doomin Sun Fest on the way next week. Do you want to talk a little bit about curating that and what that's been like?
Yeah, that's been really fun and was for a minute like a very stressful thing that we didn't know if we were going to be able to pull off. But then we did, and we like filmed a bunch of stuff, and we were able to. It was really amazing because we kind of just made this long list of all of our friends whose music we love and who we respect a lot, and we're like, well, we probably like a fraction of this list will respond and be down, but like so many people wanted to do it, which was really cool. We have like a lot of people on the lineup, like way more I think than we were thinking would happen, because a lot of people were like enthusiastic about joining us for this, which we were surprised by. I think. I mean, I was at least,
Especially for a virtual event, because like now, like as the summer, like we're entering the summer now, like virtual events aren't happening as much. Like everyone's announcing the festivals and the tours this fall, so it's kind of like, you know, putting a cap on that in a really nice way.
Yeah.
With this event is like really cool.
Totally. And everything's for donation. So everyone is donating their time and their sets. And that's like really speaks a lot to these people as well.
Yeah, it's a really incredible lineup. It's just, I feel like everyone that I've been excited about making music over the past few years, like Soccer Mommy and Vagabond and Adrian Lanker and a million other people. Yeah, I think it speaks to kind of like the nature of virtual events too, to that many people were available and able to do it. So that's really cool. Something to look forward to.
Yeah, we're excited.
Yeah, well, we are going to hear one more song for you guys here. Think of Spiraling is a song that really stood out to me on like my very first listen to this album as just a fantastic song that I think encapsulates a pretty universal emotion really well. Is there anything you want to tell the viewers here about that track before we dig into it?
That song is just about, the anxiety of like mortality and just kind of like how we think we can prepare or keep ourselves safe or something. And we just like have actually no control over like our lives or what happens like to our bodies physically. I know that's kind of dark, but it's something that I've been trying to like embrace and be less scared of. So I think like writing a song about feeling like that, like on tour, especially because tour is so dangerous sometimes, you know, like tour is dangerous. You're doing like a lot of like driving. I've been in accidents on tour before and stuff like that. And I feel, and you're just like at the whim, like you're just at the disposal of everyone around you basically. So I kind of wanted to frame it through that and just like cope with the fear that I had whenever I was on the road by like kind of writing like kind of what I think is kind of a funny song about it. But yeah, maybe it's not that funny.
No, I like what you were saying about like the subject matter is dark, but there is like a certain lightness about the song, and I think that comes through in a couple of the tracks on this album. What were you guys kind of keeping in mind when you developed the sonic world that Bachelor exists in?
It was really track by track.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, like we said before, it wasn't as deliberate in terms of, like, I don't know, having, like, the sonic qualities, like, completely match the story of, like, whatever we're writing about. But yeah, like Ellen said, we went track by track, and we made decisions based on what felt natural and cool too.
Yeah.
We were, just lots of experimenting in that way. And I think that we've both individually had a lot of time throughout our lives to experiment with writing music and being in studios and seeing what sticks. That's the thing about collaborating too. It's like you're just like throwing paint at the wall with someone else, and you're like, what works, and what doesn't. So
I think another thing that makes it cohesive is that we had like we like took a bunch of Melina's gear, but it's not like we were in this like fancy recording studio where we had like a million different guitars or we had a pretty limited amount of like instruments and stuff to use. So you hear similar characters kind of happening just by nature of that being like what we had access to.
And we had just windows. Like, we were in a house, like, the computer and everything and the speakers were just, like, set up on the dining table. And the dining table in the room had just, like, windows on all sides. And it was just, like, the back patio was, like, full of trees. And, like, you can tell that you were in L.A., which is fun. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Trees and 2 weeks in an Airbnb and a beautiful friendship. That's what I'm getting. That's the album.
It was the dream.
With a hot tub.
And a hot tub. That's fantastic. We're going to listen to one more song from Bachelor. Thank you so much, Melina and Ellen, for joining me today. Here is Bachelor with Sick of Spiraling.
Gas station knife, but the danger is in the car. Who couldn't see me? It was too dark. As the brakes slammed to the floor, missing me just into shore. Thought if I can't have my own back, how the fuck can I have yours? Spiraling out, and I need your touch to stop. You are brave and light in a world so dark, and I'm scared out of my mind, and I need your love. Oh, I need your love. Driving on to the next town, keeping the rubber side down. But the danger is in my phone and the drug of an endless scroll. Call you back at the roadside.